extraordinary aviation person. All right, Mia, take it away, okay?
My name is Mia Anderson. I am also a race scholar, product of this club here. And just a little bit about me. I'm 19 years old. I took my first Discovery flight when I was 13. My dad's a pilot, my mom's a flight attendant. I've got other pilots and flight attendants in my family, and so I always say aviation is in my blood. And so kind of what I'm here to talk to you guys about today is aerobatics and specifically competition aerobatics and my time at nationals. Spoiler alert, that trophy tells what happened. So just a quick disclaimer, I am not an instructor. I am not an aerobatic instructor. I'm still in the lower levels of aerobatic competition. And so this is just my experience and stuff from my training. And another thing is I don't want anybody here getting inspired because self-taught aerobatics is very, very dangerous. I highly advise against it. And pilots who are unfamiliar with aerobatics should never try aerobatic maneuvers without an instructor. They like to open up the How to Fly Aerobatics chapter and they'll start reading and they're, okay, I can roll inverted, and then they'll get in the plane and realize they skipped the chapter on how to roll out of inverted, and that's not good. So please, I advise against self-taught aerobatics. So about my history, and then we'll go into that. Like I said, I was 13 when I took my first Discovery flight. I really, really fell in love with aviation from that flight, and I was 13 years old, very young. I couldn't solo an airplane until I was 16, and I couldn't get a license a year after that when I was 17. And so I tried looking at my options. I was taking some Young Eagles flights, and I was at the Manassas chapter. And what happened is my Young Eagles pilot, Anne, she she told me about gliders. And in gliders, you can solo at 14 years old and get your license at 16. And so I thought that would be a really great option for me. And I just looked into it and we decided to go out to the glider port and just take a look around, and that's at Front Royal. And so we walk up, we're watching, somebody comes up to me and says, hey, we've got a pilot going solo. Do you want to go up with her? And so, of course, I say yes. My dad says yes. I run, I jump in, and my mom is not happy with me, but she said maybe we should figure out her name, her credentials, anything. And thankfully, it turns out that she was a commercial glider pilot at the time. Her name is Allison. She's an NTSB investigator, also an airplane pilot, and she ended up being my glider instructor, my primary instructor, after she got her instructor's license. So I was flying gliders. I got my license, 2 years ago in June, I believe. And then that summer at Oshkosh, or before Oshkosh, I found out that I had gotten the race scholarship from this chapter. And so I was very excited about that. And the week after I got my glider license, I started working on my powered license. And I got my airplane license last year in June. Is that right? Yeah, last year in June. So I got my glider license before my driver's license. Then I got my driver's license, got my drone license, and then my airplane license. And I did some spin training in the gliders just for my sake, so that I knew how to get out of a spin if I got into it. And I really, really loved the spin training. And I take pride in that I was the only person that didn't make my instructor want to throw up. And so he told me that I should go out to I'm not saying Australia, it's the Estrella Sailport, and it's in Maricopa, Arizona. And so he suggested I go out there. So I went out there for, I think, 3 or 4 days, and I took introductory aerobatics with Jason Stevens, who I've now flown with him quite a bit. But we did just intro aerobatic maneuvers. We did loops, rolls. For what we started with was rolling inverted, and then he would roll me upright, and then I would roll inverted, and then he'd roll me upright, and then we'd practice that over and over until I could get inverted, and then we started working inverted, pause, and then roll back up. And so we just kind of worked our way into it, and it was great. He told me that I had just missed the Australia Classic Aerobatic competition, and that I should come back the next year and compete in that, and so I kept that in the back of my mind. I had so much fun at that I decided I wanted to get my tailwheel endorsement, and so I flew one of the super decathlons at Leesburg and took aerobatic lessons as I did my tailwheel. So it was the winter time, so I would do my landings first, and then we'd go out in the practice area and do some aerobatics. I eventually switched to a different decathlon and a different instructor. And before that, I competed at the Australia Classic in Arizona, and I got second place. That was my first aerobatic competition. It was such an amazing experience. I had gone out the weekend before the aerobatic competition just to kind of get more practice in and figure out if I really was going to compete. And so practice, everything went amazingly. The Air Force Academy has a glider aerobatic team, and so they were out there as well. And I really got to know them, and now their coach, he helps me at competitions now, which might be cheating, but it's fine. So I competed at the Australia Classic, and I did more training in the super decathlon when I got home. I competed at the James K. Polk contest in Warrenton. It didn't go as well as the Australia Classic, and so that was my first powered contest. It was a lot of fun, just so many great people in the aerobatic world. And then I had gone back out to Australia the week before the International Aerobatic Club National Championship, just because I, again, wanted to practice more and get used to the sequence. And so I competed at Nationals the week after that, and I'll kind of talk about that a little later. So here are just some photos. Let's see, use this long ruler. So that right there, that was my first time at Australia, and that was a pretty awesome photo that we got from inside the cockpit. This was the week before the Classic. There's me with my second place trophy and medals. That was also at the contest, and then this is my, as some pilots call it, glamour shot with the MDM-1 Fox. It is, everybody asks me what my favorite airplane is, and I'm like, my favorite airplane is not an airplane. It's the glider MDM-1 Fox, because it is just a absolutely gorgeous glider, and it's so slick and fun, and I just love it so much. And then there's me in the super decathlon. My instructor is Bob Schmidl, Rooster at Leesburg. He's kind of popular around these parts. He flies at the flying circus, and so he took me up in his pits when we were out practicing one day. And so that's me at the contest. So a lot of the time, some people do, if their airplane is aerobatic, it's certified for aerobatics, they'll just kind of take some introductory lessons, learn how to do a roll, a loop, things like that. And it's really a lot of fun. Competition is different because each maneuver has a standard, and mixing the standards with this box, the aerobatic box, is quite difficult sometimes. In larger contests and higher categories, you actually get deductions if you go outside of the box. So you'll see, if you look at the shadow, the judges' line, so the judges would be sitting right here, and the plane will be competing in this area. There's a floor, there's a ceiling, and each category has bottom limits so that they don't get too close to the ground, to maintain safe distance from the ground, things like that. Something about aerobatics is we have an x-axis right here. So it's the judges here, and then the x-axis is here, and then you can see the y-axis goes along here. In the more beginner categories, you don't really switch to the y-axis. In gliders, it's a little different. We have a maneuver that switches, and I'll show that a little later. So this is Salina Airport. This is where we competed at Nationals. So you'll see the main runway here. You've got the taxiways all up here. And, the airplanes were all stationed around here somewhere. And then the gliders, lucky us, because we don't have engines, we can't take off on this big, long runway like everybody else can because it's slow. So we had to tow our glider all the way from the hangars down here across this, all the way across this runway to where we set up around here somewhere. And it was quite fun doing that at 4 in the morning. So the glider's operation area was around here. We would take off and land this runway and this runway. You'll see the yellow is the box. So we had 2 judging locations, one right here in this soybean field, and then one right here at the end of the runway. And so pilots would come in, do their figures and do their sequence, and then head out and then land at whatever runway they're approved to land on.
Was the judge's location like concurrent, or did it happen based on like the way the wind's coming or something?
Yeah, so if the wind was from the, basically the way they did it was in the morning they would place the judges to where the sun was to their back, and then in the afternoon they would switch. So at lunchtime they would switch to the other side of the box. Depending on the winds as well, we have a official wind direction at the morning briefings, or they'll give you the official wind. So if the wind is from the north, we'll enter from the south. A glider hold area is out here, so we'll be on tow, all in this area, waiting for somebody to get out of the box. And then we'll come in, we'll release about here, and then we'll enter the box right about here. And there's markers all along the, all in these fields. And we basically just go whichever direction is the official winds. And if that changes, they'll tell us on the radio. There's a bunch of, communication is key during a contest this big. And so we have, it's actually funny, technically we can't call the air boss because that's for air shows and that's a whole different insurance, all this stuff. So they gave us the opportunity to name the air boss whatever we wanted. And that's a little dangerous with And so I think my favorite was Air Princess, Air Mattress, that was a good one, Air Lord. There were a bunch of funny ones, but yeah. So we would communicate with the air boss, and then around here when we're just about to enter, we'll communicate with the chief judge, and then they'll say that we're cleared into the box, and then we can enter.
How many participants?
So I believe the Nationals had, I believe, 90 competitors.
And non-power gliders only? Okay.
So that was overall, I believe. Gliders, there were about 5 civilians, including myself, and then 10 Air Force Academy cadets, I believe. So that was interesting working with them. I always love them. They're fun to be around. But they call it the battle wagon. So it's this big van, and it's got a simulator inside, and so they park it around here, and then we all just kind of hang out until we're ready to launch, and it's really a great time. It's a lot of good community, and it's great. So these are the contest categories. So it starts at primary and then works its way up to sportsman, intermediate, advanced, and unlimited is the very top category. There's really nothing above that. Primary will have a lower number of figures in a sequence. And so just to kind of show you these, so these right here are what we call sequence cards. And I believe the figures themselves are pronounced arresti, I believe is what the figures are called. And that was basically, I believe that was standardized in the 60s from a Spanish pilot. There was a little bit of aerobatic judging, or I don't know the history too well, but basically he was the only person who was writing down his cards consistently with figures. All the other pilots were writing down, they would change the shape of a figure, and people liked the way he wrote his figures, so they standardized that. And these are the glider maneuvers. All I'll go into the primary and sportsman a little bit later. But you can see the primary has 6 maneuvers, sportsman has 8. This is intermediate, it has 9 figures. Advanced has 9 figures as well. You'll see the dotted right here, that means inverted. So for this example right here, we start at figure 1. It's an up line, so you'll start level, you'll go up and then roll inverted, and then you'll continue your sequence. So you'll see the dotted line is inverted. This means like a turn, and then that shows how many, so that's 2 or 4, so you'll be inverted on that instance, and then go 1, 2, and then pull up. And so it looks like a different language, it kind of is, but once you get a good idea of what it looks like, then you can read it pretty easily. And then this is an unlimited sequence for gliders. And you'll see that looks very complicated. So a lot of people ask me what's the difference between competing in powered and glider. Next year, hopefully at Nationals, I plan to compete in both powered contest and glider contest. So I'm really excited for that. From the knowledge of the president of the contest, there has been nobody to do that yet. So hopefully I can do it and do it well. So from my experience, and this is looking at the kind of more local contests, not the national contest, powered it seems very rushed for me. I know that sounds a little strange, but you get strapped in the airplane, it's go, 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 you're next in line, you should be waiting, or you should be outside in the hold, all this stuff, and you gotta take off, get into the hold, wait, do your belt check, all of these things, and then get into the box and do your sequence as good as possible, and then get out of the box, enter the pattern, do all the radio calls, land everything. And it is stressful. It's not an easy thing. And so in glider, it feels a lot more relaxed, I feel like, because I hop in the glider, strap up, tow plane takes off, and I'm just flying with the tow plane for, I think one of the tows at Nationals was 20 minutes. So I was just behind the tow plane for 20 minutes, just sitting back, looking at the box, thinking about my sequence. What are the winds showing me? If the winds are to my left or right, how do I need to compensate for my sequence? Things like that. And so obviously powered has the advantage of having an engine on its nose. And so powered sequences tend to be a little bit longer than glider sequences. And so here's an example. Not much of an example, but I can show you a more extreme. The primary glider has a down line. So our first figure is just, we'll start straight and level. We'll rock our wings to tell the judges on the ground that we're about to start our sequence. And they have this card with them, looking up and watching us and grading us. So I have some of my score sheets from Nationals up there, and I can kind of talk about that. But we have a down line here, so we'll rock our wings and then just drop our nose. In powered, we have an upline, because we can start with an upline. And there we go. In glider, actually, if we do have an upline as a figure, we actually we're allowed a change of pitch, because we don't have that nice little throttle. So we're allowed that change of pitch to then make our wings level, rock, and then go do our upline. I can talk about this one. I have that on another slide to talk about it. So the first figure is an upline. So we'll just go up for a few seconds, and then it goes straight into a spin. So this upline sets us up pretty nice because we can do our upline, pull the power, pitch the nose over, and start our spin. So it has one triangle and a smaller triangle, so that means 1 spin and a half. So we'll do 1.5 spins. We'll start going the other direction. This is a half Cuban, which is you pull up, do kind of a loop. Once you're 30 degrees or 45 degrees down, and you roll out of it. So that's a half Cuban right there. Then we do a loop right here. That's the loop figure. Then we'll do a 180 competition turn. A competition turn is basically a steep turn. It's 60 degrees or more of bank, and then we'll do a roll for this powered sequence. And I've competed this at the Warrenton contest. This right here, you can see this is a unlimited glider sequence. I've seen it done. It's incredible. My instructor, Jason Stevens, competes in the unlimited category, and it's just incredible watching a glider do this. So you can just kind of see they both have, the unlimited power has 9 figures, and the glider has 10. While there are more figures in the glider, this has more negative, more inverted. That's going to take up more energy. In a glider, you're constantly going down, and so they don't put as much negative stuff because that's going to consume a lot of energy and take a lot of your altitude. So this is the primary glider sequence. This is what I competed at nationals. So it starts with figure 1 right here. We have a 30-degree downline. In primary and sportsman, it is always going to be 30 degrees, 30-degree upline, 30-degree downline. In the higher categories, it's going to be 45. So we'll do a 30-degree downline into a clover leaf. A clover leaf is primarily a glider figure, and basically what it is it's a loop with a quarter roll on the up. So I didn't bring a little figurine or anything. So it'll be, you pull up, and then you look over your shoulder, and then you put your nose 90 degrees that way. So it'll be like this, and then you pull through. So Powered doesn't really have that figure. It's a little wonky on the figures. The computer doesn't know really how to make the clover leaf on the sequence card because it's unusual, and it's a weird because it changes from the x-axis to the y-axis, and so it's a little strange. This one here is a 270-degree competition turn, so that's the 60 degrees or more of bank. Then we have a roll, a wing over, and then a loop. So I actually have a video here. I hope it plays. All right, so this is my best flight at nationals. So this was the last flight. So you saw that wing wag. I've got my magic pink hat on. I'll tell you why that helped me score better. So you saw the downline and the pull up. Then we have the clover leaf. So I'm right inverted when I hit the horizon, and then you can see the lines of the fields. I come out on the road, and then it's a 270. So it's a turn, pause, pull. And then once I've turned 270 degrees, I'll pause the turn again, and then I'll roll out. So there's that quick pause, and then I roll out. I'll do my roll. So I'm just checking, when I look over my shoulder, I'm checking my the distance. My hat fell off right there. I'll kind of check where I am in relationship to the judges because I want a good presentation score. And then there's my wing over. It's just kind of a little turn. It's really peaceful. It's very fun. And then my loop. And then there's me looking at the judges again. They're off to my right. And then here's my loop. I want to make sure when I... Yeah, I wanted to make sure my hat was on, and I'll tell you why. So on my loops, basically what the judges are looking for, here's the wing wag again to tell the judges that I'm done. So just to kind of talk about the scoring a little bit, each judge has 2 assistants, and the judge, one assistant will be calling out what the next figure is going to be. They'll describe it. So instead of saying a clover leaf, they'll say a loop with a quarter roll on the vertical. So that just kind of gets the judge's mind, so where they can look up at the glider or at the airplane, they can think about the scoring. I'm not a judge. There's a whole course and like a week of training you have to do, and then that is on top of experience, the required experience you have to do. Each maneuver has, or each figure has a difficulty, and judges will score a figure from basically 0 to 10, 10 being the best. And there's 2 types of 0. There's just a 0.0, and then there's a hard 0. Hard zeros are not good at all. That basically means that you did not do the figure at all. You basically did it so horrific that they just were like, that was awful. Hard 0. And so the other assistant will be writing what the judge is saying, notes, things like that. And once they have that number, so let's look at this real quick. So like right here, the difficulty is called a K value. So that downline has a K value of 7. And then the cloverleaf has a K value of 16. So whatever the judge scores, it'll multiply by that number to get the total score for that figure. Everything gets added up, and then that's your score for that flight, basically. And then there's the presentation score, which is out of 10 as well. And so the K value for presentation scores is 10. So it's 10 times 0 through 10, basically, to get your presentation score. They add all that up with the other judges, and you get your total score. And so with my little magic hat, the first 2 flights that I flew they were good, but my loops were pinched or L-shaped, basically. So like a cursive L kind of looks like an oval like this, is what pinched means. And we want it to be a circle. There's also E-shaped, like a little pancake is what it looks like. So for a pinched loop, what happened was you pulled up and then you lost too much energy on the top and you just kind of fell out of it. Because what you want to do on a loop is you want to pull up and then float to kind of get over and then pull out. And then if you get lowercase e on your notes, then that means you floated too much, and that caused you to kind of make a pancake. So what my hat did on this last flight was I wasn't floating properly. So right about here I wasn't floating. So what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to look back when you see the horizon in the proper location. That's when you're supposed to start floating. And then once you're about 30 degrees down, you'll pull through. And so what I was doing is I was seeing the horizon going like, oh my goodness, I need to float. And so I used my hat for this last flight to block the horizon until instead of me seeing it here, I was seeing it here. And then that got me in the perfect spot. So that's why I call it. Exactly, it's a horse blinder. It really is. Because I think I want this to be a good loop. I got to start floating, and then it turns into an L shape or E or whatever. And so my horse blinder is my hot pink hat. And that helps a lot, actually.
Could you play that video back again and just let it run through?
Do you have any questions about it that I can?
I just want to see it.
Yeah. What was that?
How high are you doing this move? Is that?
So we'll during competition, we'll normally release around 4,000 feet for this primary sequence. That just gives us plenty of room. That gets us in a location to where where the judges can see us and grade us properly. So there's that cloverleaf. And in Kansas, there's not many mountains or hills that you can, or buildings that you can mark. So I had to use the roads, which thankfully moved perfectly north, south, east, west. And I'm looking at the judges, want to make sure that I'm right in front of them. So a roll in a glider and a decathlon are very different than, let's say, a roll in an extra or RV, because I'm not saying this to offend anybody, but we have to use the rudders, and we have to push when we're inverted to push the nose up to get a good roll. And then you'll see me fix my hat because I know I'm going to use it. So I'm looking, and then if you look at my hands, you'll see I kind of push the stick forward, and then I'll pull back. And then we might. Anybody have any questions about that?
What was the total altitude loss from entry to exit?
So I'm not quite sure. This was a while ago, and while I was making sure that I wasn't going to hit the bottom of the box, my brain wasn't working. When I'm out at Estrella doing practice, we release at 5,000 feet, and we'll be able to get through the primary glider sequence maybe 2 times with enough room to do a few more maneuvers. And then that gets us right at pattern altitude or at a safe altitude to where we can descend a little bit more, get in pattern altitude and land. And that's about 20 minutes from 5,000 feet doing my sequence twice and then doing a few practice maneuvers.
Do you start your entry to the box at the top of the box?
Yes. Yes, because I'm a glider, I start at the try to start kind of closer to the top so that I can work my way down. In powered, I kind of start in the middle because I know that I'll have enough power to get up a little bit. In powered, this is another thing about the differences. In powered, I know this sounds strange, but it's legal. There's something in aerobatic competition called cheating. And so it's not going against the rules. It's just kind of doing something to let's say if I'm doing competition turn and I'm kind of getting low in the box, I may do a little bit of top rudder and a little bit more power so that during my competition turn, I get up maybe 100 feet, 200 feet, just a little bit above. It's called cheating. There's certain things, certain maneuvers in airplanes and gliders that have a lower performance than, let's say, an extra or pits. They can enter a maneuver a certain way or do a certain, like, for the roll, if it's a snap roll, like pop up, and there's just certain ways you can kind of cheat that you hope the judges don't see. And sometimes they do see it, sometimes they don't. You'll get points off if they do notice it and see it. But if you can hide it, it's kind of interesting. So powered, I start in the middle, and then if I need to get up, I can kind of cheat with the competition turn. So I was actually supposed to compete in a powered contest and a glider contest prior to this meeting. So I had put this in here with the intention of putting another video in here. When I went back out for training for that contest, I forgot my cameras at home. So I do not have a video of me doing the sportsman sequence. But after nationals, I did very well. I'll go over my scores later on. But I did very well, and I think a lot of people would be upset if I stayed in the primary category. There is no rule to move up or anything, but I decided I wanted to move up. And so I went out and practiced the sportsman sequence. I think my dad can agree with me. This is a really fun sequence for me. I got down after putting all of the figures together for the first time, and I was smiling ear to ear because it's just so much fun. So it starts with a normal loop. Then it goes into a half Cuban 8, so that's what I talked about, where it's the half loop and then roll out on the down line. And then you'll pull back up. And then this is called, number 3 here, is called an Immelman. So I'll pull up, and then once I'm here, I'll roll back to upright. And then that brings us over to 4, which I do a spin, but it's one rotation and a quarter. So 1 1/4 spin, and then I'll do, like I showed you on this one, this is the figure symbol for the clover leaf, and on this one, this is also the symbol for the clover leaf. So the computer doesn't really know how to draw it. It's a wonky figure. So once I do that clover leaf, because it has a quarter roll right here, that'll get me back on the x-axis. So I'll be on the y-axis after this maneuver, and then enter back on the x-axis here. This one here is called a layover Humpty. It's really fun. So I'll pitch down, gain a bunch of speed, about 130 for that figure, and then I'll pull here, pull up, roll inverted on the up line, and then fly it until I'm back down. And then I'll do 180 competition turn, and then a roll. So that's a really fun sequence for me.
And you do all of that within the 3/4 of a mile of the box.
Yes, so I do all of that within the box.
And the box is about 6 cents a month.
I forget the measurements, but
3,000
okay, yeah.
Cute, yeah.
6 cents.
So the U.S. National Aerobatic Championships was really just a really special week, and I think all of us know about the community in aviation, and the aerobatic community, especially competition aerobatics, is just so amazing. Everybody is so kind and welcoming. It was quite funny. I got asked, "Oh, are you with North Dakota University?" And I'd be like, "No." I'm like, "Oh, are you here at the Air Force Academy?" And I'm like, "No." Like, "Oh, are you with this college?" And I'm like, No, I'm all alone. I'm just here with my mom, borrowing someone's glider. I'm with nobody. And so someone got this moment before my last flight, and I was really stressing because I really wanted to do good. Brennan, who was from the Air Force Academy glider team, he and I were neck and neck the whole time. I'll show you the scores a little later. But I really wanted to do good, and I was stressing, and I was like chair flying the whole thing on that photo right there. But we showed up at nationals and signed in. Everybody was super kind. We did our safety checks on the glider, got that certified. I really wish I put a photo in here of the hangar. The hangar, it was one big hangar with how many airplanes would you say? Maybe like 70. Yeah, I'd say 70 airplanes. And there are extras, there's pits, there's super decathlons, there was another, I forget the name of it. It was absolutely incredible. It was insane. It was like the most expensive game of Tetris you'll ever play. And then there's all of these amazing people. I don't know if you guys know Rob Holland. He's been the national champion in the unlimited category for like 10 years maybe. He was just so incredible, and I just got to meet all of these people. And it's such a small world because you start talking to people, you start to get to know them. Found out that one of them worked with my dad for a few trips. Found out that another guy was really good friends with one of my friends here in Virginia. And so it was just a great experience. And being out in the glider area, you can see this was, like I said, getting the gliders ready at 4 or 5 in the morning before the sun rose. Here was a sunrise photo. You can see the tower there, back there. So we're pretty far out here, and it was just a great experience overall. So after flight 1, these were the scores. So this is Brennan, this is Nicholas. I've competed with Nicholas at the Australia Classic back in March. They're both Air Force Academy glider teammates. And so Brennan flew really well. His score was a 79%. So on our score sheet, it makes it really easy because it calculates the possible percent, so the possible amount of points, and how many points you got. So it gives you that possible point percentage, and that percentage is kind of like how good you did. So he got a 79% on that flight. I got a 75, and so that flight put me in second. And then the next day we had flight 2. It's an interesting story. Larry, we're not gonna worry about his score. Larry, great guy. His glider is very small, and the judges didn't see his glider, and so they didn't see the first figure. So they thought he skipped it, and so he got that hard 0 that I talked about for almost everything. He got a hard 0. So he wasn't too happy about that. So he switched to the glider that I'm flying, which is a lot bigger. It's got paint, so you can see it. So flight 2, Brennan did very well again. He got a 78. Larry, who flew the MDM-1 Fox this flight, got a 78 as well. So they were 0.3 points away from each other. And then I got a 78%, 78.23% as well. So we were all kind of up there that day. And that put Brennan in first and me in second overall. And then the last flight, I got an 86%.
Wow.
Nailed it.
That's really good. So that was from that video that I showed you guys with the pink hat. That was an 86%. And, after being around all of these pilots for a week, they're like, how'd you do? I felt like I felt like the daughter of the group. And they're like, how'd you do? And I'm like, I got an 86 on my last flight. And they're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And so I was really, really proud of this flight. Brennan, he was not proud of that flight. But Brennan, he did amazing the whole week, and so he did get a 73 that day, and then Nicholas and Larry were down there as well. So overall, that put me in first with a 80 percentage for the week. Brennan got a 77, Nicholas got a 72, and Larry got a 60. And then there's my photo. So I have my score sheets up here. I've got my aerobatic book. Does anybody have any questions about anything? You want me to go back to another slide? Yes.
Gliders use AGL for their altimeter, and airplanes usually use MSL. Does that mess you up when you're doing?
So glider pilots, we do use MSL when we're just soaring. So when I'm out at Front Royal, we will use MSL. In aerobatics specifically, we only use AGL, and there's a reason for that. When we're on the ground, before we take off, we always make sure that our altimeter is at 0, 0, always.
We always
That's
did too. That's
super important that it's always at 0, 0 for aerobatics. Because when you're doing aerobatics, you're pulling G's, all of these things, you're thinking about getting the figures right. You don't want to look at your altimeter and have to be like, okay, I'm at this new airport, field elevation is this, I'm at this altitude, how do I subtract it? You don't want to be doing that math. And there have been pilots who, unfortunately, I believe there was a Thunderbird accident because he didn't set his altimeter properly. He didn't set it at 0.
Right.
And normally they do. And so I believe that there was a crash because of that. And there have been pilots that have crashed because they forgot to set their altimeter to 0, and they thought it was set at 0 once they got up, and then they were way lower than they thought they were. They thought they were 50 feet off the ground during an air show or something, and they were really right there. So.
Yeah, I flew out of Marina about 60 miles south of Australia. We always
Yeah.
used AGL.
At our club, we use MSL.
In Front Royal.
In Front Royal,
Yeah,
we use
maybe
MSL.
because of you do ridge soaring.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably why. Is that the
clubs-
best club down in that area?
It's pretty much the only club down in that area.
Not in the best.
In this area, I know that there's Grant County in West Virginia. I've flown there as well. There's Mid-Atlantic Soaring in Pennsylvania, just on the border.
Yeah, I've flown there.
I haven't flown there, but Grant County has winch launches. So I went out there to get my winch endorsement for my glider.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right?
They say it's the closest thing to a carrier launch that.
Yeah, you just.
Yeah. I think it's 0 to 60 in like 4 seconds.
Yeah, it's a blast.
And I also, I've actually flown in Scotland as well. I've gotten to fly in Scotland, and they had winch launch. That was incredible. We got to fly over the island where Mary Queen of Scots was imprisoned. So that was really awesome. And I forgot to mention in the beginning, I have about over 300 hours total. About 60 of that, or 60 to 70 of that is in gliders, and then over 250 in power.
So as her mom, I was there with her, and she's gonna hide. She was very humble, and she was humble today. But we would get back to the Airbnb that night. She'd be like, "I really want to feed those Air Force Academy."
Okay, so the funny thing is, so if you'll notice, this paint scheme here on this glider is not really, it's military. It's Navy painted. And so the owner of the glider, his dad was in the Navy, and that is a paint scheme replica of his dad's plane. And so it's quite funny competing against the Air Force Academy cadets and their Air Force paint scheme. I'm an NJ ROTC cadet, so that's high school military class, and they just think we're silly kids. And so I thought it was quite funny that as an NJ ROTC cadet, I beat them in a Navy glider against them at their academy. And I'm a girl. They didn't like that. There were three other females. 4 other females who competed, and they were empowered. So I was the only girl competing in the gliders. So it was quite interesting getting to be around not that many women, especially in aerobatics. There aren't very many women, and so it's a great community that we're trying to grow. So, any other questions?
You still haven't landed yet, have you?
I'm sorry.
You still haven't landed yet.
Are you considering pursuing a military,
So I did consider that. I was going to apply for the Air Force Academy. Maticola, the coach of the glider team, said he would write me a recommendation and everything, and I was really, really thinking about it, and then I sat down and I just talked myself through everything, and I just kind of decided that that's not the way I wanted to go. By the time I hit my 10-year commitment, I would technically have been in for 16 years and have 4 years left for the 20-year mark. I would be dumb not to do that, and then that would put me at 40 years old. So while that is an amazing pathway for a lot of people, I just decided that wasn't for me. I applied for the Southwest Airlines Pilot Pathway Program, their 225 program. Unfortunately, they paused application reviews about 2 months after I applied, and we've heard some rumors that they're going to start back up. So hopefully I can get in there before they close again. So I'm just kind of feeling around, seeing. I'm going to community college right now at Northern Virginia Community College, and just kind of flying for fun. The decathlon that I fly, 749 Papa Charlie at Leesburg, the day before I was supposed to leave for a contest, it got a fuel leak. And so it's been down for a while, so I haven't been able to fly that. And then the contest that I said that I was going to compete in last weekend got canceled. So yeah, that's kind of an overall update about me.
What's your next one?
My next ratings, I hopefully plan to pursue my glider commercial and my glider CFI. I'm going to pause on my instrument for the time being, just because colleges, universities, and pilot pathway programs, they don't want anything past a private, so that they can mold you and train you and things like that. And so I just want to wait on my powered licenses. That's why I got my tail wheel, and then I fell in love with aerobatics. So I'm going to try and keep flying aerobatics, and then get my commercial G and CFIG. Anything else?
Do you like tail wheel better than tricycle?
I do. I do. I love tail wheel. I think it's a lot of fun, and it keeps you sharp. I will say my landings are not pretty. I'm still working on that. But I do like tail wheel a lot better. I love the Super Decathlon. It is.
Bob said, we gotta come.
Yeah, I looked at my dad. I nudged my dad. I'm like, So,
Be careful flying that inverted.
yeah, no. I'm not doing the drunk farmer routine in that.
Change the CG.
Can I get this picture up here?
Which one is it?
The one with all the extras in the hanger.
Here, I can do this.
No.
I may have the video. Let's see. And I'm just gonna pull up the photo of the expensive game of Tetris.
I wasn't gonna go there, that's why I tried something.
I do have this actually. This might be interesting for you all. I do have one thing. Okay, I have this clip. This is from their YouTube channel. They broadcasted it live.
This is you?
This is me in the glider. I forget which flight this was. It's a little shaky. Yeah, so this is kind of where this is obviously zoomed in, but this is where the judges are sitting. It's the camera's back behind the judges, the Liblies. So there's that clover leaf. Yeah, there.
Oh, but it makes a sound. Do you
I do have a video. I do have a video from a while back. High speed pass in this glider, and it will surprise you.
At the end of your initial downline, what's your airspeed?
My airspeed. So basically, what I do with that downline is I'll use it to set up for the next maneuver. So I will keep the downline until I get my maneuver, and I have my little notes because the cloverleaf is about 120, 130, I'd say. Yeah. And then here's the loop. It's kind of hard to see when you don't have clouds or ground reference, basically. It's kind of hard to tell, but then there's that wing wag. And then I guess I can, I have a photo of all of the airplanes in the hangar, but I can't seem to find it. I don't have it, I don't think. Okay. And then I've got one more that I'll show you. It may be a little hard to hear. I'll turn my volume up. My volume's
Yes.
So yeah, it sounds like a jet. It's really loud. So.
Do you guys put water in the wings?
So we, depending on, we won't put.
Ballast?
I think I'm not familiar with glide. I haven't flown a glider that used water ballast, but I do know there are locations in some tails and in the wings. I haven't flown with water ballast.
Mostly for cross country.
Yeah, gliders actually specifically in
Do the trying.
what's it called? In cross country,
Right.
gliders perform better at max gross weight.
Right.
So you'll see pilots head in there with a bunch of ballast.
Right. What's cool is they do their triangle, and when they come
Do it
across
again?
the finish line, they pull up and dump the water. And in Arizona, the evaporation factor is
Yeah,
pretty
that's
good.
awesome.
Yeah.
Let's try this last one, and then I'll be. Here's the best photo we have. When I walked in, I started like squealing. I was super excited. So you can see you've got a bunch of extras here. There's some pits right here. There's super decathlon somewhere in this corner. This plane here for Goody Thomas, he works with my dad every now and then, so that was kind of cool to make that connection. But I mean, this is not a small hangar. I tried counting and I couldn't. Of course, you have the gliders out on the other side of the airport. There were, I think the Air Force Academy had 5 gliders, I believe. And then there was Larry's glider and Robin's glider, the one I flew. And so there were 7 out there, I believe. So, yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Did you get practice days?
Yes. So every competitor is guaranteed 1 practice flight. And I got that 2 days before my first flight. I think that was Saturday, and my first flight was Monday. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Was the glider you used based out there, or did you have to take it out there?
So the glider that I was flying is actually kept at Estrella Sailport in Arizona. So two other people. There were 4 people in total, and then Larry at last minute flying this glider. So there were 5 people flying this one glider because the MDM-1 Fox is quite rare, and it's so high performance that it's just the best to compete in. And so the owner and 2 of the competitors drove it from Arizona to Kansas, and then drove it back after the contest. And we have a trailer that we take the wings off, put them in the trailer, and then put the rest of the glider on.
Carbon fiber?
I believe carbon fiber.
That's where you get your performance.
Yeah, I think a drone company just bought the Fox manufactured, and they're not making gliders. So,
That one went up.
yeah. Yep. So, any other questions? If
Thank
you
you,
guys
Mia.
are, yeah, no
Thank you very
problem.
much.